In this video, we're going to expand or build upon a previous quick tip tutorial regarding the hotkey access of your individual panels or palettes inside 3D Coat. Now, we had talked about using hotkeys to bring up different palettes and some problems you might have with 3D Coat switching, your brush alpha packs, and so on. In this case, I want to show some small issues that you may encounter when you try to utilize those hotkeys, and I also want to point out why it's advantageous to assign hotkeys to your most frequently used panels or palettes. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let's say for now I have been going through the different shaders and I got one that I like, and now I'm ready to start sculpting. The first thing I'm going to have to do is choose a brush alpha, and so you're constantly going to find yourself coming over and having to switch to different panels and palettes, and that may not be all that much of a problem, but just over time and repeated use, you realize there's got to be a more efficient way to do this. Also, for example, if you're using a reference image like this in your color palette and you select a tool, let's say maybe like the subdivide tool, you see how it covers it up, and now you have to switch back to your reference image after using your tool, or maybe you want to leave your reference image up while you're using the tool. So again, you may want to choose which palettes you actually want to activate using your hotkey so that you don't have this issue cropping up all the time. So same thing with brush options. It depends if you change your brush options frequently. Let's say for our presets, if you use these often, and especially if you're sculpting here in 3D Coat, you're definitely going to want to use Artman's presets and whichever ones you have already created yourself. So if I were to be using the reference image here in the color palette and I invoke my preset panel, you'll see how it's scaled just like it is here, and it also has all the other panels that are docked in the same segment present here. So what that means is I can't scale this panel unless I pin it in the scene. Now you see what exactly happened here. It changed my UI rather dramatically because 3D Coat assumed I wanted to undock that entire section, and I did not. Okay, so let's go back to Windows, restore workspace. Let's go back to our color palette. Now, how would we go about preventing that? Well, the first thing I want to do is undock that. Now, if I want to pin it, I can. So, as I'm working, that stays pinned inside the viewport. Let's say you don't want it pinned, but you do want to go ahead and scale this so that you're not having to scroll through this panel each time, and you also don't have a lot of extra white space taking up unnecessary real estate. So I'm going to go to the upper right hand corner. I'm going to close that. Now if I want to access my preset panel, wherever my cursor is, that's where it's going to come up. And even if I scroll down to the bottom here, move my cursor away, when I hit that hotkey again, it's going to remember the same position in this panel that I was last. Okay, so no matter where I move, that panel is going to follow my cursor. So that's very, very helpful. And some artists even collapse the tool panel and just use the presets. You can bring that back up by clicking this little small arrow. Now let's look at maybe assigning the brush alphas a hotkey. By default, they are not assigned, but you can. Down here, I assigned the B key. To make an assignment, you just simply hover over the option or the tool that you want to assign a hotkey to and hit the End key on your keyboard. That's END. And if it happens to be assigned to something currently, then 3D Coat's going to warn you and give you the opportunity to either stack it on top of that or redefine it. So B key, we have the same problem here. If we try to scale this, it's going to do the very same thing, and we don't want that. So let's go ahead and undock it, and let's scale it exactly how we would want it each time we hit our hotkey. And you may want to use large thumbnails if you want. And we can leave it just like that. Let's go ahead and close it. Now when we hit our B key, you can see it follows our cursor. So it's very cool. We have another quick tip, and I think you'll find this extremely helpful if you happen to possess a 3D connection device such as a Space Pilot Pro, Space Mouse, and so on. You can not only use that to navigate while you're working, but you can also assign hotkeys to the number of buttons you have on your device. You can sculpt while you're moving about your model, and I'm going to bring up the buttons editor. I'm using a Space Pilot, and in the upper section here, just under the LCD panel, you've got a row of 6 buttons that you can assign to whatever you like, and these are those 6 buttons. You have some other buttons on your panel to the left or to the right. Just below your main 6 buttons here, you happen to have basically like a plus and minus. It's assigned to the sensitivity of your puck, but in general I never bother with that. So what I did is, by clicking on this option, I can assign my bracket keys just like you would in Photoshop. And in 3D Coat, you can always scale your brush size up and down by using these same bracket keys. So I hit the right bracket key, and I put the rightmost button as my brush alpha hotkey. I can easily feel for it without having to look at the device. And likewise with the plus and minus button just below it, with that assignment made, I'll click close. We can quickly breeze through tedious and difficult tasks such as repeating patterns along the span of your model. So what I'll do is going to choose the absolute brush, and I'm going to hit my hotkey on the 3D connection device, and I'm going to choose a 3D brush alpha that I've created. Among those buttons, I have one set for the E key to bring the E panel right to my cursor. And I could use something like just a regular brush, but I have to make quite a few adjustments. Let's try the regular stamp brush. The stamp brush works really well because you can drag and rotate and scale all at the same time, but it's very dependent upon the placement of your initial click. So for example, I realize I need to push this down just a bit, so that may not be the right brush to use in this case. We could use maybe a spline stroke draw mode, but I find that that's a bit hit and miss. You have to make multiple attempts to get these arrayed like you prefer. So the quickest option here might be using the Movable Stamp. Now when you click, you can see a preview, and you can move that all along the surface. This is one of the coolest features inside 3D Coat. And using my 3D connection device, if I need, let's say for example, I'm going to undo, in my brush options panel, I can change the rotation. So let's say it's off a bit. As I click, I can use on my keyboard the 9 and the 0 key to rotate on the fly, and I can also use the bracket keys just below that to scale or increase. But if you have a 3D connection device, you can do that without even having to move your hand to the keyboard and look down at your keys. You can feel for the brush alpha button, and below it I can use that increase or decrease button. So I can just hold it in place and just turn my puck to position it if I need, and let go. Obviously I need to reduce my depth a bit, but again I can move it in place, rotate, kind of nudge it, and let go. I can just keep doing that. Again, increase if I need. And you just keep working this way. And once you start getting used to it, you can work much, much faster. For demonstration purposes, I think this gets the point across. So yeah, those are just a few workflow efficiency quick tips, and we hope you found it helpful. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.